what's going to be? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. We're in our second last episode of 2022, and we're getting ready for you with the first album coming out in 2023 that we're talking about this year. Ooh, yeah, we're doing that. Before we jump in, though, I want to thank our sponsor, which is Phoenix Fitness, FNX Fitness as well. So, yeah, we are now past Christmas. We have a week between Christmas and New Year's. I know a lot of you guys are like, yeah, we got New Year's resolutions coming up. And most of your New Year's resolutions, I think most of the ones in the country, in the United States, really center around health and fitness and getting in shape, losing weight, that kind of stuff. So great, you want to get in shape, you want to lose weight, or you might want to follow me and be like, I want to be mosh pit ready. I want to be mosh pit fit. I want to be mosh pit fit. I just came up with that on this one. We're sticking with it. So in order to make sure that you're going to be mosh pit fit, you're going to want to make sure you're getting that exercise, physical fitness, that you're eating right, that you're eating healthy, you're going to the gym, you're lifting a good amount of weights, and you're doing cardio as well. So you want to make sure that you're as healthy as possible. But when you're going to the gym and doing all that stuff, you want to make sure that you're preparing right and recovering right, and that's where FNX Fitness comes in. What they have are many different types of supplements that are going to help make sure that you prepare right for those workouts, recover right from those workouts, and maintain that healthy lifestyle to make sure that you're mosh pit fit. Myself, I use FNX Fitness's non-stim pre-workout before the gym because I've got more than enough energy as is. A lot of caffeine's not going to do me well, but they got a non-stim formula. Ooh, does me very well. And their protein as well. I use their whey blend protein. They also have collagen protein, vegan, plant-based, all that good kind of stuff. So anything you need to help achieve your fitness goals and get mosh pit fit, Phoenix Fitness has for you. Our listeners get 20% off using the code CPP20 at fnxfit.com. You can go link description of the podcast at. Thank you, Phoenix Fitness. Now in our feature presentation, we have two guys from the band Polar out of the UK. Woody and Fabian on the podcast today. The band's brand new album, Everywhere Everything, comes out on January 13th, 2023. And we go deep into some crazy stuff on this one. We go deep into the concepts around the album surrounding what happened during the pandemic, how these guys had to write it and basically reconstruct their band, reconstruct their friendship, reconstruct their connection while writing this album based off of just not being able to do it together. We also talk about that breaking of human connection as a central theme of Everywhere Everything. We talk about the importance of talking about mental health, but we also go into some of the struggles that bands are seeing in the music industry that you might not be thinking. These guys are from the UK. We talk about how Brexit has impacted UK bands, which is astounding to me that we're finally talking about it on this podcast. We also talk about how the pandemic affected other bands, other venues, and we also talk about greed and how prices are also going up, how it's getting harder to. We talk about all this stuff in this podcast, but that Brexit one, if you're from America, you are not even just from, if you are not from England or not from Europe, you definitely want to take a look and listen at that point. It's early on in the episode. You'll thank me later. Are you guys ready to listen to the whole entire thing because Polar is awesome? Yeah, you are. Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. This episode right here, we are talking about our first real brand new album of 2023 that we're going to get into. It'll come out on January 13th. And do you like post-hardcore music? Yeah, I do. Do you like it when it's especially hard-hitting and kind of totes that metalcore line? Okay, now I'm getting real excited here. And I can talk all about it with the guys from the band. Their brand new album, Everywhere Everything, again, coming out on January 13th. Get ready for it. So coming all the way from the UK, please welcome Woody and Fabian from the band Polar to the podcast. So gentlemen, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Hello,
everybody.
Yeah,
thanks for being on, guys. How has everything been in your world as of late, especially as we're really, really close to that album being released, and you guys, hopefully, as everyone else will see it, like I see it, starting the year for new music off on such a right note.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good news recently. We just announced a big festival in Spain called Resurrection Fest, which is with the likes of Slipknot and Pantera and Ghost. It's another festival with the Ghost Inside, which is obviously a big thing for us. We're big fans of those guys, and it's, you know, with the journey they've been through, it's very inspiring. So like to be able to share a stage with them is going to be sick. And we've just been doing life does happen, and this time of year life happens probably a lot harder and a lot faster. So but all things considered, good. We're in a good spot, and we're finally at the point where the album's going to be coming out, which is a long 2.5-year journey that we have just traveled through, which has had many highs and many lows. But we're here to talk about it, and that's a good thing. So it means that it didn't absolutely finish us off, which is a great thing. So
that is a great.
Yeah. I mean, the pandemic has, it's, the music industry has suffered from it. So it's nice to sort of come out the other side and be like, right, something to look forward to happening, the album coming out, people hearing all the music, the fruits of your labor, that kind of thing. It's, it's exciting.
I mean, we've seen a lot of that in 2022 as well. Just, of course, we had 2021 where like the first half of the year specifically still heavily impacted by COVID, where live shows were just starting to get back in. Then the second half of 2021, it was like, okay, now we're really starting to get back into it. All of 2022 really haven't had any issues with it. So like live music wise, more new music coming out, more bands being on the road, everyone kind of getting back into the swing of things when it comes to the live music scene, when it comes to the music industry in general. It has been a very big positive where with, many different artists, many different acts coming out with incredible new music, tours selling out like crazy. It's been really positive to see, and to see that you guys are a part of that, where now, the pandemic, we're kind of past it right now. You guys have been able to come out on the other side as a band with new material, stronger than ever, and you guys be playing a couple of festivals, Resurrection Fest, and you said that, I'm like, okay, now Slipknot, Pantera, Ghost, am I going to have to find a way to fly out to Spain for this? Because that sounds like fun. But then also saying that you're going to be playing a festival with the Ghost inside, and I'm just thinking here, I hope that you guys get a chance to maybe play before the Ghost Inside, because then you guys can go into the crowd, maybe into the pit for the Ghost Inside. And when they play Aftermath and that Wall of Death hits in the bridge and the breakdown.
Taste of the action.
Yeah. I'm a big Dark Horse fan. If they play that, you might get a bit of a pit retirement out of me, like gone. I'll go wear my old bones out to that. But yeah, like it's from an outsider's perspective to see the industry coming back alive, and it's just unfortunately been faced with new obstacles, new things to overcome that necessarily weren't there previous, and to be in those clogs and be a band that's actually functioning in that industry, you kind of have to overcome those things with it, and you have to overcome those obstacles with it. So everything that is happening is a massive positive. We unfortunately, we have a very big fan base in Europe. And while the pandemic was going on, we weren't just dealing with that. We were dealing with the idiots in England who have voted to leave Europe. So obviously causing Brexit. So Brexit has basically fundamentally caused the way that touring works to change, and certain parts of it. So there is I've been a massive way of just adapting to the new norm. I guess that's what everyone calls it, the new normal. We're slowly finding our feet. It's taken a long time, and I don't think I don't think it was supposed to take this long, but I think it needed to take this long in reflection. And we have birthed our strongest work to date while doing this, which has been an amazing feeling to get to where we are now. But as I said at the beginning, the highs and the lows during that have been an emotional roller coaster. That's a good word. I should use that more often. We've been on an emotional roller coaster, and we're not fully off that. Yeah, we've done the two big drops have kind of come in, and we've done them. We've still got a couple of more till the ride finishes. But it's an experience that we get to talk to even great people like yourself about. So and we lived it. And I think the album is a good reflection of that time.
It's going to be something I'm really curious for people to go and listen to. I do want to ask you guys about this now because, Woody, when you brought this up, my mind just went to a completely different place, and I'm very curious about this. With a lot of us that have been like focusing on the music industry since the pandemic has kind of ceased and since touring has come back, we are seeing a lot of these different issues that bands are having with going out on the road, different travel costs, inflation, with every single band seems like they're trying to go out all at the same time. Transportation has also become an issue. Health concerns has become an issue because when bands test positive for COVID, now they have to drop off a couple of days, and that can completely ruin a tour. But I had not even thought about the whole entire Brexit situation and how that impacts like just the UK specifically. So what other new challenges have come up for you guys since Brexit in terms of touring through Europe? Like, I'm really curious to hear about this.
We now have to have a government official document, which is called a carnet. And American bands will use a carnet to come to Europe. It's basically a legal document that states that you have bought your equipment, you've paid your duty tax on it, and it allows you to freely travel to play music. Without that, they can take away your instruments, and that is given, like, there's no time frame on that, or you can get ridiculously heavy fines. Now, we had to learn how to use a carnet, which has been a bit of a learning curve, hasn't it, Fab? Because funny enough, they were really eager to do Brexit. Now they've done it, they're not so eager to do the things that make it easy to function while this has happened. So there isn't a big neon sign saying get your carnet stamped here. It's actually a doorway in that you shouldn't go through in an airport that you go through. You're like, I wouldn't go through here. This either is staff entrance, a cleaning toilet, or it's something where I shouldn't be in an airport. But that's the place you go. And and every airport is different. But you have to sign it out and you sign it in, and that is like for every part of the journey. So if we did some festivals in the summer where we fly, we would get to the airport, we'd get our carnet stamp, we'd fly, we'd play, get to the other side, have to get stamped by them, play the show, back to the airport, stamped again, back to the UK, stamped again, and then you're out. If you don't collect those stamps, I think we were told it was like £1,000 fine. So like, and they're obviously pretty hot on fining people because they want to take the money, but they're not making it easy to do the process. So
it makes it more complicated, more lengthy, more stressful. But you need to factor things like that into your travel time, which means communication with like transfer travel or arrangements with promoters, things like that. The ripple effect is, and that's just one element really, but the ripple effect is pretty big. The other big one is financially. It's a lot more expensive to tour in general. So all these things, again, the ripple effect of that, they're factors that have to be considered when accepting shows or doing things on the road, anything on the road, But again, there are challenges, and like what he said earlier, like I think people, certain countries, they've been doing this for probably quite a while. It's just people voted for it, and it's here it is.
And we adapt. We adapt. So it's a big old learning curve. But you just learn how to process. You just have to learn how to do things. You just have to be. There was a pre-pandemic, pre-Brexit, you would get your flights, you'd get all your stuff, you would go to Europe, you would fly there, you get on the airport, you play your show, you party, you get your flight, you go home. You don't need to, parts of that trip, you don't really switch your brain on. You just go up and play, you're hungover, you're in the airport, you just want to go home. But the touring now, it's like, we have to think, we've got to get this done. So we've got to go to an office to do that. You'll have to speak to someone. No one's going to talk to some bleary-eyed idiot who's like had 1 million beers in Germany and be like, hi, can you sign this? I want to go home. You've got to kind of like approach things in a bit more like, and we are, I guess we are professional, but approach certain situations in a bit more of a professional manner, which makes you very conscious to being about how you are and how you progress through a journey. So it doesn't mean we drink any less beers, but we're just a little bit better at dealing with people like on the other side. But it's all completely worth it, because people like say to us, like, they need our band, they need that live experience in their lives. So if it means that I have to hustle, we have to hustle in an airport to get through to do it, it's worth every second. The show and the people that attend that show is the most important thing in the world to us. So we will move heaven and earth to do that.
That's something that I was just... Oh, go ahead, Fab.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, like, you know, we're excited to get back on the road in 2023. Whenever and whatever shape or form that may be, you know, there is a genuine excitement to like get back on the stage and perform these new songs, integrate new songs and old songs, and get the crowd interacting. You know, there's a genuine excitement there, even though, you know, it's a touch more challenging here and there, but there's excitement. So it's it's going to be great.
And I'm hoping you guys are able to get out in 2023 and, you know, get this record to be heard by many people, be able to have them experience that live show from you guys in a completely different way. But I really wanted to ask about the whole entire Brexit thing, because I had never even thought about how that would impact bands and musicians from the UK, because essentially with having to have that document stamped every single time you enter an airport, whether it's you're entering a flyout or you have just arrived by flying in, there's other bands that probably have gone through Europe that have to deal with similar things, like if you're from the US or if you're from Australia or anywhere else in the world. But it makes it a lot more difficult, a lot more time consuming, and potentially even a lot more, dare I say, expensive, just because what happens if you miss one? Like you said, £1,000 fine. I mean, that could completely tank and like a good amount of profitability that you would have on that tour. That could completely eliminate a good number of shows just based off of an issue if something gets taken. There are so many other issues that play here. It kind of blows my mind with the fact that, you know, we don't even think about this as, you know, music fans. It's like we want our favorite bands to come over. Like for myself, I want my favorite bands to come over from Europe, from Australia, over the United States. And you guys want to see your favorite bands from the US come over by you guys. It makes sense. But when we start to actually understand what is going on, and actually understand the logistics behind it, and the roadblocks that come through, even the roadblocks have been added due to other political changes and through the pandemic, it really does a number for us to understand, to really get an understanding of the trouble you guys go through to make your dreams a reality, the trouble you guys go through to bring these shows to us, to be able to play live in front of us. And it also adds, for me personally, something a little bit more personal to it, just because if you guys are going to be willing to put your neck out there to go and, you know, play a show, and I'm going to be there, I should do my damn well best to give you all the energy I have in that crowd. So once that pit opens up, I'm standing in the middle going, bring it on, everybody.
Yeah. The thing is for me is that the decision to leave Europe and essentially create Brexit is not a decision that musicians would make, or people in the entertainment industry of any kind, because it's not intuitive to being a musician to make it harder to travel. So now we're faced with a decision that's been made. You know, we were outvoted essentially. You know, that's obviously clearly what happened, but a decision's been made which is not one that we wanted or agreed with. And now we have to, you know, we have to fit in these, you know, regimented things. These are the rules, these are the fines. You know, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I never chose this. Like, do you know what I mean? So that's the frustration is there. And it's not just with musicians, it's anyone really that, you know, is traveling like that.
Traveling for anything or any other purpose, whether, and just thinking from you guys from the UK specifically, traveling to Europe, if it's just for leisure, if it's for work, if it's for entertainment purposes, if it's anyone in the entertainment industry, there are so many more political like hoops and regulations that you guys have to go through now based off a decision that, you know, if that Brexit decision was left up to every single musician in the UK, it probably would have been struck down so fast that, you know, you'd blink and all of a sudden the talk about anything with Brexit would have been just gone.
Yeah, it's a hard one, because when we go to, we have kids asking us, why did you want to leave Europe? And it's like the most heartbreaking thing. It's like, I don't want to leave Europe. It's hard because you want to say this in as with the least amount of disrespect, but the people that voted to leave voted on a false ideal that was sold to them by a government that was completely opposite to actually what was going to happen if they left Europe. And most of those people have been hit financially because of it. And now they're complaining. So like the moral, I guess, from the whole process of this is maybe read a bit more about what you're voting for, understand what is going to be the consequence of doing this, and then understand the consequences of what you're doing to your generations behind you. Because this isn't just affecting us, this is going to affect everyone. Well, that's only going to get harder over time. You know, the decision's made. We're not going back. You know, the door's shut. So it feels like it is our duty to kind of overcome that, to make it possible for us to tour Europe. Because as you said, if we're doing that, we're giving everything to be at that show. We're jumping through every hoop that's being put in front of us. We're jumping over every hurdle. But it will make the shows that much more sweeter for us and for the people there because of the effort we've done to get there. Now, we've not done a full tour since we've come back. We've done a lot of fly-in stuff, so like one-offs. I imagine once you're on the road and you're in a van with a British number plate, I imagine that's going to have a lot more problems attached to it by itself. You're going to get pulled over all the time. We were on tour in Europe. We did in 2020, just before the pandemic hit. We did 2 tours back to back. One, we went to every place in Europe we have never been to. And I mean, we went to some of the strangest places I've ever been to in my life. But it's important for us to do that. Like, that's our ideal is to go to these places, to go to as far and as wide, you know, like break the comfort of the modern routine of going to major cities, go to the sticks, go to further away places. But Brexit was on the looming decision as just the final parts of it being put into place were happening, and for the last couple of weeks on that tour, I think, you know, every time a police car could see a British number plate, you were pulled over. And then they were going through paperwork, they were going through passports, they were going through they were probably checking up what you've done in your life. You know, anything that they can put on you, they're probably going to do, because it's created an animosity, because the decision's been made and it's been made very foolishly, and rightfully so. People in Europe are angry about it, and rightfully so. People who are in England are angry about it, and then there's the people who have voted for it and they're not angry, but they're now angry because they're losing money. And it's like nobody's won. Everyone suffered here. There is nobody walked away from that and gone, oh, that was the best thing we ever did. Everyone has suffered. And that's come with foolishness. But kids who attend shows, who are following an incredible music scene and genres and all sorts, they deserve the right to still see shows. It shouldn't be a foolish decision made by a load of old people in England should make people in Europe suffer. So we will always overcome anything that's thrown in front of us. I mean, stick the hurdles, I'll jump them. You know, put the hoops, I'll go through them. It doesn't matter. The shows and the fact that people shouldn't suffer for that is a big thing to me. And we've just learned how to adapt to it. And I think that is in the honor of us continually wanting to play shows.
And that's something that is really admirable as well, where no matter what's going to happen, no matter what obstacles get put in your way, you're going to still find a way to play shows well. But one thing you did say, Woody, that really sticks out to me, and I think it can also easily pertain to anyone across the room, but also to the music industry as well, is when these decisions are made, when it's put up to a vote, whether it's something that's going to be big, small, whatever it is, and you're so gung-ho about one particular, side of the story, whether it's, use the Brexit thing, leave Europe or stay in Europe, focus in on, understanding what your position is, but also read up on the other side as well and have a further understanding of what is the impact going to be for myself now, but also the impact for myself later on. What's going to be the impact for the later generations later on? Because those generations are your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids. They're going to be impacted by that. And those decisions can have major detrimental effects going forward. With the music industry as well, we're seeing some of those major detrimental effects happen with other decisions that very few people have made, in essence, just to make more money than they had been. Take a look at what's happening over in the US with the whole entire Ticketmaster Taylor Swift thing. That was just a massive mess in its own. And another smaller one, but I think every band ends up dealing with this at some point. I saw Alpha Wolf just go off at a venue on this at some point in August, and recently Bad Omens has jumped on it as well, with venues taking cuts from the like a 20% merch cut. It's the band coming to play at that venue is the reason why people are showing up, is the reason why you're selling tickets. In that ticket price is also the price is also factored in, you know, what the venue's going to cost as well, because if you're going to want to play there, if it's someone else's venue, you're going to have to pay a price to play there. People are going to come in and pay. They're going to be buying drinks at the bar. The venue's the one providing those drinks. The band's the one providing the merch. Let the bar go to the venue, let the merch go to the band, and leave it at that. Let people earn their hard work and not try and take every little piece of it because you think you deserve it.
That's it. Yeah. Raise your prices of your drinks so that you don't have to take someone else's profit. Do you know what I mean? Like, the band would have their business down. You know, they're selling their merch, they're playing, they're commanding a fee, they're bringing the people in. How you run your business, in your example, be it drinks at the bar, is up to you. You know, don't sabotage someone else's, enterprise.
There seems to be a real, since the pandemic, there's a real sense of greed out there, and you can see it. Everyone's clawing. Everyone wants that big win. Everyone wants all the money, and it's like greed is one of the worst traits you could probably have as a human being, because it makes you clueless to what's going on around you, where you're getting that money from, what you're taking from people to be able to make yourself richer. And I think with those venues doing that it just falls into the greed category. It's just another way to take money from someone, but not see what you're impacting. Like bands on the road, like especially when you do overseas tours and you do those tours, that you're literally living on the line, the profit margin line there, and like that 20% could be the difference between you eating and not eating. And then if you don't eat, well, that's going to affect your show. If you affect your show, you have a shit show, people walk out of a venue and go, that band wasn't very good. So like, these things have huge ripple effects, and it's just in the order of greed. And it's like, is that 20% going to make you better off? Are you going to get a house out of that 20%? No, you're probably just going to be 20% richer than the people that you've just taken that from. That's not going to change your life. It's not going to make you like, suddenly you're not going to go and get that Lambo. It's not going to do that. But it is going to make someone else 20% poorer that probably is surviving on that. Like living, surviving, like and those clear, concise, like barriers just don't get seen. It's just like take, and it's like, like that band's giving something back to all those people. Allow them to earn some money to continue to do that, to make other people happy in other venues.
Imagine if that was 20% every single night.
Well, it is a lot of it, isn't it? America's like that, like
almost every single night. Like it's kind of become standard practice where there's a lot of venues I know that do take a 20% merch cut. I do know some that don't take any merch cut at all, which is, thank God you don't. It's like, you're not going to give the band any bit of the bar, but the bar is your business. The merch is their business. Let those things be separate, because if a band's selling merch and say, the merch line is wrapped basically around the whole venue, yeah, they're going to deserve that. They're going to deserve, the full amount of that. It kind of has become standard practice. But another thing I was thinking about too was taking a look at just how prices have increased, and overall just anything when it comes to, from a fan's perspective, versus attending shows. I remember some of the shows I'd go to and like I would pay, maybe $20 with, and this is all the crazy fees included, this was before the pandemic. I'd pay like $20-$25 to go to one of the to go to a show, one of my favorite venues. And yeah, it was a good time. Now I'm going to see that show. It's about like 35 now, but it's like, okay, what else happened in there? What other decisions happened? Yes, I understand the pandemic did take money away from a lot of these venues because they couldn't have shows there. They tried to do a lot of things. They might be in the red. They're trying to recuperate. I understand that portion. But then you look at all the other things that might have been added on there too. What if it's the bands trying to up the ticket prices because now they're getting that merch cut? Or they're not getting that merch, the 20% merch cut is going to the venues. Now they have to find a way to recoup that money so that they can just eat and survive and actually go on tour. So in case something goes wrong, they actually have some sort of funds to make sure that they can get back on their feet. Because I know Silent Planet at the beginning of their previous tour with the Plot and You, they had a van accident like on the second day. And a GoFundMe had to be created just to try and get them back on the road. Thankfully, it was like 17 hours and they almost doubled their goal. So they were back out on the road and everyone kind of came through and like, hoorah, we're going to save these guys. But that's not always going to be the case for everybody. It's you guys are running on such thin margins where any bit of that's going to be, if someone's going to be greedy and try and take from that, you guys are going to have to find a way to get back at that margin. And then all of a sudden, the price is going to be reflected on maybe the fans or anybody else that's trying to get in, like a hold of like your product, get a hold of your music. And it's not even your guys' fault. It's a ripple effect from someone just saying, I want more of this.
Yeah. It's exactly that. The scales never, like in all the years we've been doing this, they never balance. They never balance. They are literally doing that 24/7. And it's like, the famous saying, more money, more problems. Well, it can be like that in a band. You earn more money, well, you've got more to pay out.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's more mouths to feed every time you earn more. And I think that's the same in any industry. And you rightfully say, like your margins, no one sees your printing fees. No one sees your petrol receipts. No one sees your hotel receipts. No one has to, like, no one realizes sometimes that people get stuff stolen that is irreplaceable or like too expensive to replace. It's the risks of touring, and I love touring, but it does come with a lot of risks, so you want to be making sure that whatever money you can collect on that, you can do it, and you're not paying someone else to be like, all right, here's another 20, here's 20% to like put a t-shirt on a hanger. And that has started to translate over in Europe and in certain parts of the UK. It does. You do hear stories now, more so than you used to. And I think that is probably maybe an effect of the pandemic. Maybe it's an effect that, like you were saying, with venues being shut for so long, they're like, we need to make sure that we're collecting more revenue than we were ever before. How do we do that? Like we're a 300 cat room, we're only ever going to put 300 people in here. Well, that's when you start seeing, well, that band is going to sell merch to 300 people of £50 per head, $50 per head. Well, that's a lot of money. Well, let's take a chunk of that. But to a degree, I understand some of this more so in the respects that if we owned a music venue and we were shut for that long, we would probably want to find every way we could survive. It's a very double-edged sword, there's rights and wrongs to all of it, but you just kind of learn. Like we've probably got more business savvy in the last 5 years than we ever have done with money and where our money goes, what we do with our money, how much money we can make, what we use to make money, and when you start having to put the hours like really like mentally into doing and learning how to use that money and make that money, you literally value every penny that comes in. Like every penny is valuable to you because you're working for it. You really are. Like you're having to like put everything on the line, and like being in a band is not an easy task. Not in the slightest. It's not like your 9 to 5, you're gonna get your salary per year. You get your sick days paid for, you can call in sick to someone and not say, you don't get those little like netted cushions that sometimes you have in jobs. They don't exist in bands. It's a sheer drop. It's literally, you're jumping buildings and if you drop, you're going down. So it's, like any way that is like impacting bands not being able to maximize like securing money, I think is a bad thing. And
yeah. I guess it's like the difference between like a hobby band and like a touring band, a professional, you know, what you'd basically, it's a business, like Woody said earlier. It's, you know, you have to look at it as a business as well. Like it would be unsustainable to continually lose money, and in the interest of putting music out and giving this great feeling to kids and fans and stuff, you want to be able to carry on doing that. Well, to carry on doing that, there needs to be some structure, like a business, and these ripple effects that we talked of, Brexit, COVID, etc., just completely disrupts all of those, the business that you've got in place. Is, you know, so it's and you're right, we are talking, you know, it is a fine margin, balance the books or make money, etc. It's it's a tough one, but I don't know, it seems to me, I don't know about you guys, but like since COVID, the world seems like really a completely different place from 2.5 years ago or whatever. It seems complete, you know, tolerances, people's attitudes, cost of everything, like the way, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like it just seems like things have definitely shifted in the world somehow.
Yeah, everything's changed, really, isn't it? Really, to be honest, it's admitting change. I look at this and I think about this a lot, and the way I look at it is nobody likes change. Nobody wants to grow old and grow out of those groups of friends. No one wants to stop going out and partying until like 5 a.m. But you have to accept change, and change is hard because with change, it means something new. It means a new environment. It means a new perspective. And yeah, it's just like we're at this point now, I think, in the world where everyone's just got to kind of start to realize, yeah, things have changed. Everything's changed. Accept it. It's not going to go back. It's, you know, what you used to know, you no longer know that. You now know this.
Yeah.
And that acceptance of change has probably been affected by it comes into so many things, so many different avenues. Yeah, like Fab said, you know, there's Brexit, there's COVID, there's restrictions, there's inflation, there's living crisis. Yeah, but I do find that if you do try to start to accept these changes, you find that helps progress because you can move on from that. Like, but if you don't accept the change, you're going to be living in a false reality for a long time until it starts to bite you.
And honestly, I think there's a lot of people that are still living in that false reality because think about it, when the pandemic hit, so many people were forced into only having any social interaction with others through a screen like what we're doing, or just by, you know, through text, you know, on social media, Reddit, Discord, whatever it might be. And now that things are back to a point where everyone can still go back outside, you know, meet, congregate, we can go to shows, we're back to that. The mental state around that has been completely changed because people didn't have to interact like that in a face-to-face conversation or in that in-person style for so long. The powerful impact that has on so many of us, and the need that we have those in-person conversations, those in-person connections, was completely vanished. And now that it's back, there's so much of a struggle there where it's kind of like the change to go from what we had at the beginning of March in 2020, then when everything got shut down and going through the rest of 2020, it was everyone had to go from living life normally, just going out, having fun, doing whatever, to being locked into this certain place that you couldn't really move from. And you only interaction you could have with other people outside, maybe your immediate family, was through a screen. And then all of a sudden when I got back out and it's able to get back out there, so many people, again, got so used to that, they're resistant to change. Social skills have gone down. Social interaction has gone down. The ability to just connect with people with different opinions has almost completely vanished. And it goes anywhere. Politics, people are always screaming at each other. It's like, if you don't agree with me on this one specific thing, you must be on the other side. You're evil. That's it. Music, if you don't like the same music I do, or if I think one song is good, but you think that exact same song is bad, but we like the same band anyway, oh my God, now we're apparently the worst person in the world. There is so much of that negativity that's also going on that is affecting a lot of these things. And it's not letting people compromise, work together. It's putting such a huge prevention thing on that. When it comes to looking at the music scene, guys, think about the bands and the venues. Instead of looking at it as a partnership to the point where the band is coming in and bringing the fans into the venue for both to benefit from. It kind of just looks at a point where it's at times where it's just, it's not looking at it as a partnership. It's looking at it as a dollar sign or that's money. That's basically it.
A cash cow.
Yeah.
And I think everything has, we wrote the album in the pandemic. And the way you've just described it then with being on screens and stuff, we did all that. Like we finished a tour. We were on a very, very cool tour. Probably my favorite tour. When I daydream and when I zone out and my wife clicks me back in, I'm generally thinking about that tour. Because it was the most fun I think I've ever had in the most dangerous, apparently the most dangerous time to be out on the road. We were on tour in 2020. It was March. And the UK went into a lockdown on March the 23rd, maybe. And we were at the beginning of March. We were on tour with Spirit Box, After the Burial, and Make Them Suffer. And
what?
Yeah, in Europe. And we were having a blast. Like that tour was a lot of fun. Some of the stories on that tour don't think can come onto this podcast, but it was a good tour. And COVID, that was right. We were like, my mum was ringing me and being like, I've just seen on the news that Poland's really bad. Where are you today? I'm in Poland. And it's not bad. But the tour finished abruptly in Switzerland, missed the whole UK leg, and we came home. And we decided through good discussions with management that we were going to do the next album. Like the plan, we were on the end of Nova, our previous album's campaign at the end. The plan was to do the next album from where we were. So if anything, all that the pandemic did was kind of push us heavily into that plan. Like, cool, we got to do this. Now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make an album. And we put a 6-month marker on it. Cool, we'll get it done in 6 months. We'll get it out. Like, it will come out within a year. It took 2.5 years. About a good 9 months of that to maybe a bit longer was just on screens like this, with a band as well that had never, as the lineup it was or is, had never written an album together. So there was no chemistry, there was no being in a room together and someone plays something or someone sings something or a drum beat. That's cool, like I can feed off that, which is what music needs. It needs chemistry. It's one of the biggest things in writing music is chemistry. It's connection, it's feeding off someone, it's having that. We had none of that. Like, trying to get a vibe on a Zoom conversation is incredibly difficult. We discovered, some of them Zoom calls went easier than others. Some were literally like soul destroying. Some were some of the funniest conversations we've had. But we were adapting. And then when the pandemic kind of got to a point where everything eased off, and we had the opportunities to be back together in a room, those relationships had changed, and they were going to be naturally because we hadn't spent any physical time together. So not only were we, by the time that happened, building an album, we were also having to rebuild our relationships together. Those friendships had to be rebuilt, like from ground. Like it's there, and if I'm honest, they're probably still in a case of work in progress. Like the album was an incredibly hard thing to do, and harder than we probably realized it was going to be, if looking back on it. But then you realize that like we were doing something incredibly difficult, which involved the participation of other people in an environment which was not natural to what it should be. There were other people doing that, and there were other people doing it in a lot harder situations. So you kind of had to think, all right, well, sometimes this is shit, like, but they're doing this and they must be having a bad time doing this, or like these guys here are like losing jobs. So you've just made you grateful that we were able to actually be creative in a time where like creativity was severed. But it comes at prices, it comes at times where we're like, if we had written the album in a room together, I guess the vibe would have been different. Would we have got the same album? Probably not. I think the charm and the rawness and the aggression in that album and the emotion in that album was definitely tied to the fact of the situation, or that the way we were building it. But we just had to, we came out of the pandemic, we were rebuilding everything. Everything had to be rebuilt. Like nothing was like, we walked out the door, Fab turns up, Noah, our drummer, turns up, Gav, our bass player, turns up, everyone's high-fiving. It wasn't like that. It took time. The relationships took time. But at the same time we were rebuilding that, we were building an album, which when you do albums, that not everyone is always on the same hymn sheet. So that can cause friction. And that's not by people being stubborn or coming up with bad ideas or not liking ideas. It's because people hear things differently. Music's subjective. So we were trying to have to kind of learn how to deal with like being together, being like on an album, working on an album, and not being afraid to speak our minds, which was incredibly difficult to do in a situation where you're on a screen or on a WhatsApp. You cannot get emotion out of WhatsApps. You can't read a WhatsApp and think, it can be misconstrued. So we had like loads and loads of like first-hand experience of all this happening to us, like tons of it. And the product of it is the album that is coming out in January, which we're incredibly proud of. But everything changed. Like everything changed. And it wasn't like one of these changes where it's changed, but don't worry, that will go back and be normal again, or be how you remember it. It was like, this is changing. This will continuously change, and this will continue to change furthermore. And it's just having to learn.
Forever unknown, isn't it? Like if something's always changing, like it's the unknown, but like constant.
Yeah, it's a consistently unknown. And we, it's hard. It's just hard. Like it's hard in all aspects. Like I'm sure if you did a petition, did a survey and went round and asked everybody, would you like it the way it is, or would you like to go back the way it was? You're going to get 100% results on the way it was. But if you live like that, then you're never going to progress, because that's not the way the world is anymore. It's like, get on board with this. This is the way it is. It is going to spin you around. It's going to throw you up. It's going to drop you down. It's going to do this. This is what life is now. And it's about trying to get a grip hold. But then we're lucky in the sense that when you're trying to get a grip hold, we have like I call it like a frustration pillow. Like, when you're angry and you scream into the pillow, like we had that in the sense that we were allowed to vent this into a band. We have a vessel to carry these frustrations. And it's just been like well, if you look back on it, it's fucking mad, really, isn't it? Like it's just like,
Are you saying you swapped the frustration pillow for a microphone? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
so instead of screen,
no, I'm gonna do it through. Like, there'll be a pillow and then a microphone. But like it's just like everything's changed, man. Like, and it's, everyone wants it to be the way it was, but it isn't. And that's the point for me now where I'm like, cool, let's just grab the bull by the fucking horns and go for it. Because I think, like life's too short to be like, oh, I really wish it was like that. And I really wish it was like, cool, this is now the future. Let's just like adapt to it. Let's move on with it. And let's hope that we don't ever have to deal with something like that again. Because it takes its toll, man. Like we had a lot of stress doing this album. And there was a lot of things, like personal situations outside the album were changing dramatically, and that was very hard for some people to grab and deal with, which is and on top of having a pandemic. So it's like, then suddenly it's like you've got to then be like super creative. It's like, how do I be creative? I've written albums in rooms with people. Like, I've sung something and someone's gone, that's sick, or that's not sick, that's good, that's not good. Yeah, we didn't have any of that. It was like, kind of like, we're going to write an album, but you need to blindfold us and tie our hands behind our back, and then we'll see if we can try and achieve it. So like the album really, it was like, we went through the pandemic like everyone else did, and just kind of unfortunately had to put a little bit more pressure on the shoulders, a little bit more stress on our backs, and carry fundamentally our child. Like, you know, the band is it births our child. It's everything we put into it in our life in that period in time. And now it's getting to the point,
songs.
yeah, and now it's getting to the point it's coming out, and I'm like, do I want the world to have this? like, I'm quite happy having listened to this in my headphones. Does the world need this? But I think the world does need it. Like, and like the lyrical content on the record, which was written between myself and Fab, I walked off the tour and we started writing the album, and it was like, I'm gonna write an album about a virus, and it's like, that's going to be the most boring thing in the world. And plus, your album's going to be dated within about 18 months. And plus, who else wants to hear about it? Like, every news station's plugging this. Like, every radio station is plugging it. Everyone you speak to is talking about it. Like, they don't need 10 more tracks and be shouting about it. Like, it, yeah. So, like, what we then did is we looked deep inside ourselves, and we really discussed the human connection. Because what that really affected the pandemic is the human connection. We are a species that was put on this planet to be sociable, to socialize, to bring people in, to love people, to talk to people, to share problems, to have fun together. And that, as soon as the severance happened, that changed the whole the human connection. Suddenly those emotions were very different. They were like situations between friends, situations between family, everything was changing, and nobody was really taking stock of it. They were just like in a situation where their lives were being like spun around so quickly that they just were dealing with it. And so from an outside perspective, I was like, this really interests me, because I can see my relationship with certain people, I can see relationships between other people, I can see how much they've changed, how the connection has moved, and that really, really sort of struck a nerve. And then I was like, this is what we need to put into the record. It's not that this virus is going to go around and kill everyone, but the virus has fundamentally destroyed the human ethic of like us being a sociable species, that the human connection has been destroyed really badly, or fractured to a point where it's beyond repair in some cases. And our album really contains a lot of that, like, and not so much as well like the human connection, but like also like what those relationships breakdowns were like doing to people. Like, I have a track on the album called Deliverance, and Deliverance is about drinking. I used to be a really badly heavy drinker, like really bad. I'm good these days, like, and I do like a beer. Like, I haven't severed it completely, but what the pandemic did do is it allowed me to take stock of that and stop and be like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I do it? Why do I go that far with it? And it go, put it down to the root. It is because the human connection was something that was out of my control, and no longer could I get a grip hold on that. I didn't feel like I had control over the things anymore, like, for a while. And like, so like, as horrific and bad the pandemic was, there was still little like rays of light in like personal quests for a better lifestyle. And like, we just write from the heart. And I think, I'm hoping that once that record comes out, that people really like connect with that, like explore their own relationship, like listen to that record and be like, cool, how is my relationship with my brother? What is my relationship with my best mate like? Like start questioning those things, because if you start questioning it, like, yeah, you might find answers there that you don't want to find, but you're also probably going to maybe mend something, or you're going to build the bridge that necessarily hasn't been built there before. And I really want people to take that away from that record. Like, I want people to listen to it and be like, how is my relationship with my mother? How is my relationship with my dad? How are my relationships with my friends? Let me think about that. Like, because I can guarantee it, and I speak to people about it where I work, and I speak to people like friends, is like, people just sever those feelings. They just, because in the back of their head, they're still hoping that it's still the same as it was 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And all I really, really would love from the record is, like, especially in the lyrical side of it, is for someone to listen to it and go, yeah, maybe I should check in with that mate. Maybe I should have that awkward conversation with someone that I've put off for years. Or maybe I should just be like, dude, we went through a pandemic. We're no longer the same. Like, those things are horrible, hard things to overcome. But I'm hoping that our record might alleviate that pressure and pain of being able to face it.
And in a certain way.
Yeah, good. Sorry. Go on.
I was saying, in a certain way too, when it comes to Everything, with the lyrical themes behind it, with the way it sounds, a lot of it does dive deep into exploring that human connection, those relationships with your friends, family, with other people, with media, anything, also with yourself. So like you were talking about with Deliverance and your connection with alcohol, because that's you looking at the connection that you have with your own mental state within yourself. And I've thought about a lot of that too, especially going through this album, really diving deep into it, getting to that lyrical content and really getting an understanding of it, because there were certain songs I was looking at and just kind of thinking, okay, some of these songs, they definitely have more of this relationship aspect, talking about the connection between two significant others, between a person within themselves, between just how people are connecting with society. Like I thought that was with Dissolve Me and Rush specifically, like just kind of really taking a look at how there's so many other things in the world that are really taking this type of connection that we have with other people, with ourselves, with the people closest to us, and diverting that into other places, and use the pandemic as an example. With everything being shut down, that was it. You couldn't actually go outside and actually connect with people face to face. That connection was gone, and the impact that absolutely had on all of us going forward. I think about this, and I talk about this a good amount of times with other people as well. I think about how much people have anxiety these days, and just how people are just really anxious to go. And it's usually a lot of times around connecting with other people that is the cause of that, or going into a certain crowds. And I get that is an issue, but also taking a look at where the root of the issue might be. Could it be this cause of just severing that actual human connection from so many different aspects? From focus more on social media, focus on more how the media tending to you, focus more on these screens where you don't actually have to connect with people face to face. And then when the pandemic hits, actually physically removing that from actually happening. Where does all that happen? What is the impact on that? And now that things are with the pandemic, where everything's open back up, we're able to go and do these things again. Things are not the way they used to be. And that is totally understandable, Woody. And I totally agree with that too. And it's the people that are constantly looking back and thinking, I wish it was like it back was in 2019. Focusing on that time frame, that mindset. That's preventing anybody and themselves specifically from going forward, because you're not going to go back in that. We went through a major world cultural shift with the pandemic. Things are completely different. Either you grow and adapt with that. I know we want to be resistant to change because we get so into our routines. And if we get into a nice sweet spot, we do not want to lose that. But change is going to happen. It's about how do we roll with that change to make it so that we can get back to that sweet spot in a completely different way, instead of just wanting to have that same thing back over and over again. Because, like you said, we're not getting back to that point.
No, it ain't coming back. As I say.
Wasn't it like best part of 2 years? Everyone was kind of, how long were we locked down for? Like, overall,
about 2 years. But like
2 years. I mean,
it went
there's
back
good things there to reintegrate into society. If I don't know, like if you were to lie down in a bed for 2 years, you would probably need to rehabilitate your legs to start moving you forward. It's the same, you take the social aspect away, you stay inside for 2 years, you're going to need to reintegrate a little, and poke your head out the the turret or whatever. And yeah, I think anxiety was a huge thing that many people, you know, the general population came with, definitely.
I think they're still going through it, like, massively. But I think, like, if you can, like, for me, like, I could write my issues or my hopes for the human connection into songs, and like some people just don't get that opportunity, like, to be able to do that. So I'm hoping people can, like, listen to our record and be like, cool, like, he's saying what I feel. Like, I understand. Yeah, I relate. I can completely relate to what you're saying. Like, and you know, that is no better gift in the world than that. It's priceless.
We talk about it quite often, Woody, you know, when we speak to fans on tour and stuff like that, and they talk to us about how you know, how our music has helped them in any way, shape or form. They may have met a new loved one through being at one of our concerts, or these lyrics really resonated with me and it helped me speak to someone professionally, or do you know what I mean? It could be any of those sorts of things. That's the massive payback that we get, you know, like, that makes it all worth it.
Yeah, massively.
You know,
I think for the band, it's the reason we're still here.
Yeah.
Is because we get pulled back by the fact that people want us to be a band still.
Yeah.
We got asked on a previous interview about the fear of the band dying, and that fear will always be there. Like, it's installed in us. Your mortality as a musician is unfortunately going to have a time, but I don't think our time's up. I think you would know, and I don't think we are. I think we've still got a lot more to give. But it looms over your head, and I think what made that loom a little bit heavier was the fact that we went through a pandemic, because that displayed what it would be like not to be in a band. That gave you a 2-year insight there and then of what your world is going to be like if that ceases, and it's a pretty cold world. So, like, I don't really want to be in that one. So yeah, but without the pandemic, we wouldn't have experienced the human connection in the way we did, and we probably wouldn't have written about it. And I think that's what really weighs at the heavy part of the album, is the emotion we managed to draw out in the vocals and the lyrics in this album. And that was purely spurred by a pandemic. So as I say, like, through all the darkness and the grief and all the pain that the pandemic caused and brought, there were little pockets of rays of light, and this album is one of those pockets.
And I think one of the main things that's going to really connect people to this album too, to really connect with that human connection once again and really get behind it, is when you listen to the way that the vocals are done on a lot of these tracks that you guys have put together. It seems like there's a lot of like this. It sounds like the rest of the band is like backing and like chorously chanting the words of the song in the back end as well, to really give this feeling of a grander thing, that more people are a part of this. So it doesn't seem like, you know, it might be as isolated. It seems like, you know, you were able to connect this because not only did you go through stuff like this, we all went through stuff like this. We all went through this at the exact same point in time together. Sure, the specifics of what we all went through differ based on our situation, based on where we live, based on the part of the world that we were part of. There's so many different things that happen, but when it came to that lack of human connection, that severance of it, and this complete shift in culture, this complete shift in life that the pandemic caused, we all went through stuff like that. So understanding that on this album with Everything, and understanding that connection that we ended up losing and we have to regain back, that some of us have been regaining back, some people still are struggling to regain it back. And if we can get to that point where we can regain that connection back, then maybe, you know, all the crazy stuff that's been happening, maybe the craziness will die down. Maybe, you know, all this political strife that's happening, all these different opinions where if you don't agree with absolutely everything that I think or that I say, you are the enemy. Maybe we can absolutely get rid of that and have people understand others that have different points of views. And when it comes to being like with you guys, what you went through as a band, trying to adapt to everything, trying to learn how to write this record and write this the way you want to write it, with a lot of this having to do Zoom calls, not being in the same room together, learning about that. It was either, I mean, I've got a big giant We Came as Romans flag in the back. It's kind of dark right now, but it's from their Dark Bloom album. It says die or grow on it. You have two choices when you have something massive happen to you. You can either just not do anything and let it die out, or you can try and evolve from it and grow from it and get even better. I'll take a look at what I was doing right before the pandemic, and I was starting to do the podcast and whatnot, and it was nowhere near where it is today. But if it wasn't because of the pandemic and me figuring out, instead of saying, oh, I wish it wasn't like this so I could go back and go to live shows and still have fun, it was, you know what can I do now to make sure that A, I still can find that human connection, and B, still do the things that I want to do. Find that human connection. I still was trying to do stuff with my friends around town just because that was a way to do things. That was a way to keep that connection going. But also, when it came to the podcast, shit, every band's on the shelf right now. Let's double down on this because you never know what might happen. Now it's 2.5 years, almost 3 years after the pandemic, and I'm sitting here with you guys talking about this stuff. I'm sitting with you guys. You're all the way over on a different part of the world. You're across the pond from me, and I get to talk about all this shit with you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, if I hadn't doubled down on it, I wouldn't be able to do something like this. It's all about that mindset of not focusing on the past, but understanding where you are now. Yeah, the past happened. Maybe you liked it at a certain point in time in the past, but that's going to change. How do you adapt to that? How do you grow from that? And how do you maintain that connection with so many other people, that human connection, so that as those changes are happening, you can keep that up as like a central core, as a central positive, and then making those changes becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, we see it at the shows now. You talk about the anxiety that people that had, to see like a room full of people singing these songs, stood right next to each other, the whole, the pit going off or anything like that. It's like, this is breaking the anxiety. This album was spawned from a thing that gave you this anxiety. And now you're stood here singing these songs, breaking that anxiety, being social, that social discord that we spoke of. Everyone's breaking that right now. They're coming to a show. So, it's good to get things off your chest in the songs, but it's also amazing to give back to people in the live environment, bringing these people together, enjoying the concert, and getting some normality back in life. That's another like payback that we get.
No, absolutely. I even think about like some of the shows I've been to like the past year and a half, and I mean, we're in a freaking Rise Against show right now, and I'll always remember just that first show back, seeing them live. It was August of 2021, so people were still kind of nervous what was going on. There were still different restrictions that were in place. And all of a sudden the band goes down, we're all going nuts, but having a good time. But then they go into the acoustic stuff, they start playing Swing Life Away. And the amount of people that had their arms around each other, swinging back and forth, just singing the lyrics of the song at full force. And it's just, we're breaking down that anxiety, we're breaking down that like barrier to human connection, literally in that moment for everyone that is there. And then if we're able to, remember that feeling, we're able to remember how impactful it was, maybe we'll be able to take it out into the world and actually continue on with that, because the more we're able to break that barrier to human connection that the pandemic caused, that anxiety has caused based off of just not having that interaction fully, then all of a sudden we're much more comfortable. People are going out and doing more things. People are living their lives to the fullest, and they're not thinking about what could have been versus what actually is.
Yeah, true. Very true. We did a show not long ago in Germany, and that was one of the shows that I was like, is this allowed? Like, is this shit actually real? Like, are they allowed to do this? And I don't think that feeling will go away anytime soon. I think it's because it was gone for so long, and then you like come and you do a show and it goes off and it's like, shit, is he allowed to do that? Like, there are rules against this? Like, why is he not wearing a mask? Like, and but yeah, I'm hoping that the beginning of 23 is the beginning of the next shift forwards to saying goodbye to that completely. Like, it feels like that door right now that door should be shut, and life should go on. This was like felt like the last year of it, where the uncertainty was still there, but the certainty and the uncertainty, the certainty is outweighing the uncertainty so much more now, that it feels like the 23 should hopefully bring a year where there's a bit more like confidence in everything, apart from money. But but there should, it does feel like in the music industry wise that everyone's really trying to make the steps forward. And the industry's got slower. It has, unfortunately, there's just more to to be done now to book a show or a tour. So it just takes more time, and it just takes a little bit more patience. And we have always been like hungry to try and do everything at 100 miles an hour, and unfortunately the industry just doesn't allow us to do that anymore. And you kind of have to play by its rules. The industry depicts how you are functioning to a degree, and I think we've just unfortunately had to wait our time, and our time is coming. Like, I feel that by January 2023 we will eventually have back pretty much where we were before we left. I feel that we've kind of got close enough to it now in our social media, but like the live stuff just needs to catch up with it.
I think one thing I didn't want to do was, you would have seen like a lot of cancellations, you know, in the early part of when we were, you know, coming back from the pandemic and stuff. There was a lot of cancellation across the world, you know, a lot of and I don't think we really wanted to be a part of that. I think, you know, we hadn't had any new music out. We knew it was kind of be coming out when it was coming out. So it was kind of like, if we're going to play live, let's make sure it's done right, and there's no risk of more disruption, cancellations, essentially. You know, we're coming back when it's ready for us, you know what I mean? And we're getting closer to that album, like what he said, and that time is coming, and we're excited. We're excited about it.
It feels better. Like, everything feels a bit more certain. It feels like you're walking on more solid ground. It didn't feel very solid for a long time. As an analogy, it's and like, let's be honest, like the band could have gone any way during that pandemic. There was no certainty at the end.
Yeah, many by the wayside during the pandemic.
Yeah, that there was no certainty we were going to get the record done. There was no certainty with us being able to come back and still having a relevant place in the music industry. So, but 5 singles deep now, and we've become a bit more. We've become a bit more of an internet band. We were never really an internet band before. We obviously had presence, and we pushed our social media, but we were much more dominantly a live act. We went out to tour, we went out to play shows, we connected with people with that, and now we've come back and everything's a bit slower on that side. We've had to adapt and become a bit more of a social media band, which is that's been a challenge, because it's like you have to constantly keep people's attention. That's the worst thing. You can't take your foot off the gas on social media. Like, if you're driving and like it's all going at 100 miles an hour and going well, and you're going through every green light, you as soon as you take your foot off, well, that's, you hit that one red light, it's hard to get going again. So and that's a learning curve in itself. But I think it's been quite rewarding, because you physically can see your growth with social media, with Spotify. You can see if what you've posted in June to what you've posted in December, the interaction, the increase in intro. Luckily it has been an increase, or a decrease would have been quite bad, but like the increase, you see the follows, you see more people getting into you, and that's quite rewarding. But that just unfortunately leaves me more hungry, and I'm sure same for Fab, to play shows, because it's like, shit, all these people are getting on board. How sick would a show be right now? Yeah. So like, I think we can go into 2023 with a bit more certainty than we have done in the last 2.5 years, and that certainty will just mean that we are a stronger band, because we've gone through so much, and we've come through the other end, and we are now super hungry to just get on stage. Well, that hunger is just going to make us like want to get out there and do it at the best of our abilities. Not that we didn't before, but we've just had that time where we've had it taken away from us. It's like the child's favorite toy, isn't it? If the favorite toy is taken away, when that toy comes back, you're going to want to play with that to death. Well, that's kind of similarly what we're kind of seeing with touring. It's like, well, this has been taken away from us for so long, we just want it back now. Like, I want to play with my favorite toy, like and yeah, it's just, but the other side of it as well, like, all the time this was happening, it had huge major effects on mental health. Like, we you know, I think most of the time when bands do something and they make an album, they don't want to go into a press conversation or any form of like interview with a negative, because you're promoting an album. It should be your high. It should be like, we've done an album. But it wasn't like great all the time. Like like I said to someone else earlier, it was like our mental health was like a empty Coke can that at any moment could just get crushed. Like that, bang, gone. And that could happen like a lot. But if your mental health goes, so does your enthusiasm, so does your like hunger, so does your focus. All of that stuff suddenly gets put into disarray because you're not in a positive mental state to go through. And we went through that. And it was very hard and, you know, grueling, like really grueling and really like tough on mental health, on all of our mental health. And I still think to this day, we're probably still recovering from that in a way. And you know, the weeks and the days and the months get easier, but yeah, it was really tough. And like, and I think you can hear that on the record, because the last thing to be done on that record is the vocals. The last thing that we ever did was what I did. And I had my vocal session cancelled 3 times on that build up. So I was pretty fucking angry by the time they put me in front of a microphone. So yeah, and I think you can probably, well, I can hear it. I can hear like certain songs. I can hear it in my voice, like the way that the strain was coming out, like where the fry was coming out, those certain screams. It's like, fuck, I actually meant that. Like more, like I always mean what I'm doing, but like I really fucking meant that one. That needed to come out of me. And I think as well, like mental health in the music industry doesn't get spoken about enough, because it's a creative art, music, and that by doing that it's subjective. And by being subjective, it means not everyone's going to love you. Some people are going to love you. Some people are going to hate you. Some people just are going to be indifferent. But we live in a world where everyone is given their opinion and voice, and people use that. Like, and being in a band can really be affected by the fact that you sometimes have to just digest and stomach what people actually feel about your band. And that's tough. And then to go through what we did with the album and the stresses and the real intense weight of the mental health side of it, we're coming to the end now and it's coming out, and I'm like, people are gonna fucking like this. Like, have we done the right thing here? Like, have I like compressed my mental health over 2 years and everyone's gonna be like, yeah, it's cool. What's next? You're like that's they're the worries, they're the concerns coming out of this as well, you know. And by the biggest like positive and the biggest ray of light that has come out of it is the record, that it made all of those hours of stress, or those hours of like self-loathing, of arguments, of not seeing eye to eye, it made every second of it worth it. But I just don't think that in the industry, mental health gets talked about enough. I think people want to hide behind the fact that everything is the ship's always sailing well. When like I think if you're honest about it, it probably isn't. I can honestly say that, you know, I love my band, I adore it, I love the people in it, I love the record we've done. It ain't plain sailing every day. We're in choppy waters a lot more than people realize. And being in those troubled seas sometimes will mean that we have to struggle with our mental health over that, and that affects all of our band. And I think that
and a lot of bands,
different bands, yeah.
Oh, you know.
But I think it's important it's spoken about, because there's no point me sitting on an interview telling everyone that it's all a bed of roses and all sunshines and rainbows when it isn't. Because all that's going to help do is highlight the issue, and it's going to make people that listen to that record who maybe are going through similar problems to relate even more, and make that more spoken about. Like, it should be spoken about. Like, people aren't having the best time of their lives doing bands anymore. It isn't like what it was 10 years ago. But we have the hunger to survive, and I think, yeah, the more that mental health is spoken about, I think the stronger the industry will be for it. Like, admit that you're in trouble, or it isn't all happy and sunshine. Because if you can admit those things, like, yeah, the battle's half won, because you know that you're going to be able to get through it. That there is going to be a rainbow at the end of this long turbulent storm. So yeah, that really, look, doing an album in a pandemic, that really highlighted to me like how much being in a band can affect people's personal mental health and personal mental well-beings.
I mean, there's a lot of people that like went through the Oh, Flo, you got something?
No, all I was going to say, Kev, real quick, was that is yet another ripple effect of exactly what we were talking about earlier.
Oh, absolutely it is. And kind of just like to wrap this podcast up in a great way, I took like what you were just talking about, what with everything around mental health, talking about it and bringing it up here on this record with everything, going through all these songs, talking about the human connection, talking about how things are not as good as they once were. Things aren't good all the time, and being honest about it. That's why I like the way this album ends with Baptism of Fire, really, because it has a little bit of a different feel to it, but it also takes a look at a lot of what we had talked about, where the more we talk about these things, the more we bring these up, the more it's going to help people understand their own struggles, their own mental health, relate to it more, and have a tangible way to explain these things to people that they can't necessarily explain to them. They can understand the emotion, they can understand the feelings, they can understand the vibe, and they can connect with people a little bit more. And with Baptism of Fire, it has more of this positivity of, yeah, you know, we've gone through some shit, but it's always, you know, always darkest for the dawn, or, you know, that one. The first part of any solving any problem is admitting that there is one. And with Baptism and Fire, it's like, yeah, we're admitting that, you know, there are issues that are in the world. We are issues that within ourselves, issues with the human connection, issues with our mental health. And it's not going to be easy going through them. We're going to have to go through the fire to get through them. But the song has much more of this positivity to it, because if we're able to accept that we have to go through, that we have to change, that we have to make a better decision, that we have to change for the betterment of ourselves, by the time we get to the end of it, we could be in a much better situation for ourselves and for the world in general when we go through those and change and get to the other side, than if we were just to stay so stagnant and just constantly look back at what used to be. And there's such a positive like note behind this song with Baptism of Fire, where it ends the album on this, again, the fact of, you know what? If we work through this, if we really go through this, if we really take the time to try and change, try and better ourselves, we can do this. And whether if it's just on a large scale for culture, for the world, for everything, or if it's on a small scale for yourself, it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly that.
Kevin, what was there any like specific moments that you have in the album that took your fancy?
Ooh. Fab's doing the interview now.
Yeah, Fab's doing the interview. Alrighty, because I was just saying if this was gonna come up though. For me, it was definitely the song Rush. That was the one that really caught my attention, and a lot of it was the drum pattern that intros into that song and how it flows throughout the rest of the song. Because I listen to them like this drum pattern, and it's like this Rush kind of jazz drum pattern, rather Rush, kind of sounds like there's a good amount of brushing going on there, rather fast paced, and I thought it was cool because it connects to the title of the song, making it, again, having this more Rush feeling overall. But then the guitars come in, and along with the vocals, they're much more spaced out, they're much more melodic, to kind of show this differentiation, where I took the song where how in life right now, with the way the world is, with all the other issues that we have, that other things are throwing us, social media, society, different responsibilities, different troubles, places that we need to have our focus. There's so many different ways we're going. We feel so rushed that's where the drum patterns are going. But the guitars and the vocals are kind of bringing it back, where it's like, maybe we're just stretched way too thin. Maybe we're focused on too many things that we shouldn't be focused on. Maybe we should try and focus on some of these, like maybe we should focus on, let me say, the things that we should be focused on, the things that are important to us, things that are going to make us happier, healthier. And it's just, we get to the chorus. I kind of thought of it as like, if Breaking Benjamin and Motion White went really melodic on their chorus, just because it became so much more grand. It flowed so much better for this enjoyment and understanding of the song as well, that we're feeling that there is much more to life if we just stop, take a look, and simply listen to what is going on within ourselves and within the things that we really care about, not the things that are just distracting our attention, like I have to do whatever I do to pay my phone bill or to pay my rent. It's, well, I know those things are important, but maybe it's not the most important thing in the world if you're not, if that's taking away from having a quality connection, a quality relationship, maybe with your kids, with your spouse, with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends. Maybe putting so much focus in on just trying to make it in some of these superficial aspects is nowhere near as important as some of the connections you have with some of the closest people around you. We only get one chance at life. You don't want to waste it just trying to pay the bills.
Well, material objects can be replaced, but relationships can't, and connections can't.
Yeah.
So
we're here for a good time, not a long time. That's what one thing was said to me one day, and I was like, oh, I'll remember that.
Yeah, I was saying that's what Rush kind of reminded me of. It was like there are so many other things going on, but sometimes it's like life can move. It's like good old Ferris Bueller. Life can move pretty fast, but if you don't stop and look around, you're gonna miss it. And this is all about understanding that life is moving fast. But let's stop, look around, find what's important to us, and enjoy.
Yeah, very true. Here.
Perspectives.
Oh yeah, that's the beauty of music, though. We're able to pick up on the sounds, be able to pick up on the flow of the song, be able to pick up the lyrics, get those same perspectives, and relate to them in different ways. But the core emotion is the same.
That's it.
That's it. And gentlemen, as we bring this podcast to its conclusion, one thing I like to do at the end of these is give my guests, which is both you at this point in time, a chance to say whatever you guys want to say, plug whatever you want to plug, promote whatever you want to promote the podcast. So gentlemen, the floor is yours.
We have a brand new album called Everywhere Everything out on 13th of January. It is a body of work that we accomplished through the pandemic, and we are very super proud of it. So if you do have the time, please try and listen to it. Try and connect with it. I hope you find something in that record that you can hold on to. We will be coming and touring in 2023. We really want to come to America. So just like get us here. We want to come. Like get us on a flight and get us over there.
Ticket,
buy me a ticket and get me to America. But yeah, and we just want to say thank you to anyone that does support our band and everyone that does discover our band. Welcome to the family. So yeah, and enjoy the ride, as they say.
I mean, I wish I could add much more to that, but Woody's kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, we're excited to come back. We're excited to get back on the road. And yeah, the all important date, 13th of January. That's the date when it all goes down. Enjoy it.
Man, I don't know how I'm going to add beyond that from what you guys did, but I'm going to try anyway. So now it's time for me to end this podcast with three very specific things. First thing first, Everything is coming out on January 13th, 2023. We went in depth with a lot of the ideas around the album on this one, and you're going to want to listen to it to really experience it for yourself. And you're not going to want to miss out on any of those tour dates. You're not going to want to miss out if they come to America. Plus, you don't want to miss out on anything cool that Polar might be doing in the future. So, how do you make sure you don't miss out on any of this? I got you covered on this one. Go to the description of the podcast. You're going to see something that says Find Polar Online. There are going to be links to all their social media accounts, links where you can watch the videos on YouTube, links to where you can stream all the music, buy the music, download the music, all that good kind of stuff, so you can get into Polar, listen to Everything, and really feel it. On top of that, where you can also connect with them online and get some merch as well. You'll see links in the description of the podcast. There'll be labels right next to everything so you know what it is. All you have to do is click like, click share, click follow, click listen, click buy, click down, all that good kind of stuff. I'm doing all the work for you. All you got to do is go down, click, and it'll take you right there. So you will not miss out on Polar. You will not miss out on Everything. You're just not missing out on anything. That's how we do it here. Now it's time for number 2. Gentlemen, whenever I have guests on the podcast, I absolutely enjoy having on the podcast. I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say, 1, thank you for your time. Thank you for being on the podcast. And 2, I would love to support the band in the future and continue to support you guys. Yeah. This was hit like within the first minute and a half of the podcast. So you guys are keeping the streak alive. So the promise is when, because that says it's going to happen. We just don't know the date or the time yet. When I can see you perform live for the first time, my promise to you both is this. First round's on me.
Yeah. Woo.
I love this man.
We're going to keep you to that.
Please do. So that usually gets a couple of cheers in there, but please keep me to it because I love to pull it off. And now, as we bring this podcast to a conclusion, I do not want to say goodbye to close out because one, goodbye is too final. I have made a promise to you guys to go and see you play live, and first round's on me. I got to make good on my promise. And my God, this conversation was awesome. So full-flowing with just things, just different mindsets, different conversations about, especially the Brexit thing that I never even thought of. I'd love to have you guys back on again to talk about more stuff in the future because this was awesome. So can this be goodbye? Now say goodbye. This is. I'll see you later.
Yeah, you will do.
Well, folks, that's my interview with Fabian and Woody from the band Polar out of the United Kingdom. Once again, their brand new album, Everywhere Everything, is coming out on January 13th, 2023. So what do you got to do? You're going to have to go to the description of the podcast to make sure you're following along with everything in the band on their social medias so that you know when things are dropping, when things are happening, what tours are coming out, and when this new songs and these new albums coming out, baby. You also want to make sure you're subscribed to their YouTube channel or wherever you can find their YouTube videos so you can watch all their music videos. You want to know where you can pick up some merch. And of course, when it comes to Everything, where you can stream the album, buy the album, download the album. You can go to the description of the podcast, say find Polar online, links, labels for everything will be there. So go check it out. Please make sure you also subscribe to the Chord Progression Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, or you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We're on all those platforms, so make sure you follow us on there. Please also subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and anywhere else you might be getting these podcasts as well. By the end of the year, by the end of 2022, we want to hit 100,000 all-time audio downloads, and I think we're going to do it, so let's make it happen. Make sure you help us out there. If you're subscribed to the podcast already, a big thank you goes out to you for supporting us. If you're not subscribing now, I'm going to extend you that same thank you. If you're not going to subscribe, I'm going to ask you to reconsider, but if you don't, you're always welcome back any given time. Thank you for enjoying this episode. Also want to thank our sponsor again for this episode, Phoenix Fitness, 20% off and free shipping the code CPP, or I think it's just 20% off actually. Yeah, 20%. I've used 20% off using the code CPP20 at checkout. I'm used to saying free shipping from the Manscaped one, but yep, it's Phoenix Fitness now. Thank you to the guys from Polar once again. I mean, this was an incredible conversation. I hope you all learned a lot from it as much as I did. On that note, that's going to be for me, guys. Thank you for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single way. I'm the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah!